From unsolved mysteries to unexplained phenomena, from comedy gold to relationship fails, Amazon Music's got the most ad-free top podcasts, included with Prime. Because the only thing that should interrupt your listening is, well, nothing. Download the Amazon Music app today.
Hello, America. I'm Erick Erickson. These are the 4 things you need to know this afternoon before you get home from work. 4 stories largely disjointed today across the board, from the economy to global politics to history. In fact, it is September 17th, and that means it's the 238th anniversary of the American Constitution. The significance of our Constitution can't actually be understated on a global system. Our predecessors, the British, from which we broke off and became the United States, still have no written constitution. They have a series of laws and traditions over time that can be amended just by an act of parliament in the traditional order. The United States has a process. We have amended it to a degree by breathing life into a constitution that's just a piece of paper that some interpret one way, others interpret a different way, but by and large, we still operate in the same way. We have 3 branches of government. We have rights that come from God that are enshrined in the Constitution, and we have ways of changing our system, including through elections and an amendment process. The American Constitution has stood the test of time, being the oldest still used Constitution on planet Earth. It's also the shortest. It's short because Americans, as a moral people, have largely understood where we've come from and where we're headed. As those change over time, it makes it more and more important that we bind ourselves to the plain text of the Constitution and hope that all sides understand this, even though we know some don't. The Federal Reserve has cut interest rates 1/4 point, not the 1/2 point that I said yesterday might have been going. With Stephen Barron, the new appointee from the Trump administration, wanted a 1/2 point interest rate cut. They are, however, signaling 1 to 2 more cuts. 9 of the commissioners suggested maybe 1 more cut. 10 of them suggested 2 more cuts this year, additional cuts possibly coming next year. Now, markets had already baked in this cut. It came as no surprise, and the prevailing consensus yesterday, despite what I said, was 1/4 point, and that's what we got. We'll see where we go from here and what it does to the economy. They did note inflation continues to be higher. They're worried about unemployment. The Federal Reserve has 2 mandates: maximize employment, minimize inflation. Occasionally, those 2 come into conflict, and they're frankly in conflict right now, but the Fed in its statement suggests that they're more concerned with unemployment right now than they are with inflation. President Trump has been welcomed to the UK by King Charles at Windsor Castle. The president let it be known that he actually preferred Windsor Castle to Buckingham Palace. Buckingham Palace is undergoing major renovations right now, so even the royal family is not there except to take meetings in some rooms. The king himself prefers to stay at Clarence House down the street from Buckingham Palace. The president, while being there, is having to grapple with a dispute with the European leaders, including Great Britain, on how to handle Russia. The U.S. told the European Union that the U.S. would be happy to impose more sanctions on Russia. In fact, there's legislation in Congress to expand those sanctions right now, pending what Donald Trump wants to do. The problem is the Europeans are spending more money on Russian oil and natural gas than they're spending on weapons for Ukraine. The president has said if the Europeans are actually serious about helping Ukraine, they've got to stop giving so much money to Russia. If they'll agree to that, he'll agree to impose new sanctions on the Russians. It's telling that the Europeans have not figured out a compelling response to the president and his logic. And by the way, it is logical. Lastly, as I mentioned in the show, the Democrats are careening towards a government shutdown. This will be the first time in modern American history it's the Democrats, not the Republicans, who want a government shutdown. A government shutdown in this case is also known as the Russell T. Vogt Empowerment Act, because the head of Office of Management and Budget, my good friend Russ Vogt, will be in charge of a government shutdown and the processes that play out. I don't think the Democrats are thinking that far ahead. This comes because the Democratic base wants the Democrats to fight, and the Democratic base has concluded that a fight with the president over a shutdown is the best way to move forward. Probably not a lot of wisdom in that move, but they're not going to be dissuaded by that. This will be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm Erick Erickson. These are the 4 things you need to know this afternoon before you go home. It's the 238th anniversary of the American Constitution. Interest rates have been cut by a quarter point by the Fed, the president's in Great Britain, and the Democrats are cheering on for the first time in modern history a government shutdown. You guys stay informed out there. Please stay engaged in the process, and above all else, please keep the faith.